The story starts with a guy who was hunting a servant who was a little pink in color, and used a trap to capture him. He is happy because he has not eaten decent meat for a long time. And he seems to be starving for meat, doesn't he? But he didn't know there was a giant boar lurking behind his back. And the animal looked very hungry and angry. Of course, he fled immediately, realizing that the beast was following him, and it seems that the boar caught the servant he had captured. He can't do anything but watch that monster devour the food that would be his that day. I was expecting that, given the nature of this place. But why the hell did he end up in this hellish place? Then we go back to a flashback of his life a few days ago, in a small town. Our main character went to a man to buy him a piece of land. But he arrived too late, and the land he wanted to buy was sold 4 days ago, the man said. He was devastated because he had had his eyes on this land for a long time. It took 3 years to save money, without spending anything. And now the 5 coins he has are useless. The man said that his coins were dirty, but he asked if he had any other land that he could buy just to have something for himself. But the man said he didn't have any land like the one he was asking for, because lands like that are rare, and he also only has 5 gold coins. Our main character got angry when he heard this. Now desperate, he told the man that he would buy any land, begging him to sell him anything, and that he didn't care if he didn't have a house, as long as he could own a piece of land as soon as possible. The man smiled at him and told him that he had something for him, that it was worth exactly 5 coins, and that it was actually quite big, a forest surrounded by mountains, cliffs and the sea, and it is quite far from the city. It's an unexplored land, and no one has set foot there. In other words, there is not much information about this land. At that moment he had nothing left to lose, so he decided to accept. He had no talent growing up, and when he turned 15, he got kicked out of his house, so he decided to become an adventurer, because he thought it was cool, and that's it. He learned that things are different in real life, and that they were not right. Most of the adventurers he met did not have any combat skills, and were far from having a free life, because they also worked just to survive. But he admired the high-level adventurers who appeared occasionally. He also did some odd jobs, and like the other adventurers, he wasted the money saved on temporary pleasures. He even thought about giving up being an adventurer, but he had no talent as a merchant or craftsman. One day, he panicked and thought that everything would get worse if he didn't do something. And it was then that he remembered that, although he is not a good adventurer, he is the son of a farmer, and I wish he had his own land. He became very determined, and saved his money for 3 years, until he had enough coins to buy a plot of land. He finally has his own land, and is ready to start his new life. As he was walking towards the land he bought, some soldiers called him and asked him where he was going. He realized that these soldiers were from the kingdom of Estonia, and said that beyond that point, there was only his training camp. But he replied that he bought the land there. The soldiers said that those lands over there are practically unexplored territory, which they call the demonic kingdom. And one of the soldiers asked to see his adventurer card. This is an adventurer card, where the adventurer's name and rank is recorded, and as the rank goes up, the color and card material changes, but his card is of the lowest class, and has never changed. The soldiers didn't know if this guy was serious, so they advised him to first learn some survival skills in a nearby forest, before entering the devil's nest. But he did not mind, and continued on his way to his homeland. Now he has come to his land, which is a complete forest. The deepest parts of the forest are apparently your property now. And they said it's full of monsters, but tranquility and peace reign there. But when he looked back, he saw a giant bear and a giant wasp fighting. He was scared to death, and thought he still couldn't win if he attacked them now. He watched the monsters fight, and it looked like the bear was winning. The fight ended when the bear cut off the wasp's head. He checked that he had indeed finished, then immediately went to the wasp's corpse to pick up some objects. He was very worried when he saw him. Giant monsters, but it turned out to be one day unexpected luck. Now you need to collect some materials. He obtained some good materials, such as oils and arthropod feathers. And there is also a magic stone. Each monster has a magic stone with its own unique properties. Why do monsters and demons use these stones inside them to manipulate magic and use abilities? As for humans, on the other hand, they collect magic from nature and do not have magic stones in their bodies. At least, that's what he learned in the Adventurers Guild class. He believes that this magic stone must have a poisonous effect, but it lacks the poisonous sting that should be in its belly. Then he realized something and went to look for the other monster. He saw the giant bear, which was already dead, and he was right in his intuition. The bear was poisoned by a wasp sting. Now he decided to cut off their flesh, skin and fur and dry them a little. He immediately set about doing this because he was already used to working in the butcher's shop. These are the materials he collected from the bear. He thinks this is a good start for his new journey. After 3 more days of going deep into the forest, he finally arrived. He looked at the land he owned and marveled at the sight. He was very happy because he could finally start living like a farmer on his own land, which is so enough. He says that the river in front is the boundary mark of his land. He also noted that the ecosystem beyond the river is clearly different. Clearly, the land here is very rich and enough, and he is very happy that he bought it. Now, he continues walking to take the first step to his new life. He stops because he noticed something strange. He stepped on something that looked like something slimy, and it seemed to be moving on its own. He was a slime monster. And he seemed a little angry because he stepped on it. He wanted to make sure that she was indeed a slime. And it was obviously slime, there's no doubt about that. Now he's getting ready to fight the slime monster. He starts to feel dizzy. Perhaps the slime has drained his magic, and he is sure that if he is attacked again, he will faint from magical exhaustion. You need to attack and break the core in the center of the slime to defeat it. He starts to attack, but the core fails. And it looks like your gun has dissolved. He used the felt made with the bear's skin to cover the vision of the slime, and now he is preparing to attack it. He swings and finally hits the core, breaking it to kill the slime monster. Still, they sprayed him with some slime, even though the animal was already dead. But, fortunately, his face did not dissolve. And finally he killed the monster. He was sad because the bear's skin was wasted, and he only got a magic stone, which is not so profitable to sell in the market. Then, he keeps going, and realizes that it's not the time to come down, because he needs to set up camp before it gets dark. If it had some branches and leaves, it could be a makeshift tent, but this forest is full of plants that I have never seen before. He starts collecting some leaves to use in his camp, but it seems that these leaves are a little different, so you need to be careful not to get them poisonous. While exploring the place, he saw a very beautiful garden in the middle of the forest. It looked like a field of flowers in the middle of the jungle, and he was confused as to why something so beautiful existed there. He saw some bones among the flowers, and thinks they are monster bones. He felt that something seemed to be wrong in that field of flowers, that it was dangerous. He decides to take care of it later, and continues to set up the camp. He's finally finished setting up camp, and he thinks that somehow, things are starting to calm down there. But he's really hungry right now. He starts cooking the wild house meat he got earlier and reflects that the plants and animals here are not at all easy. And tomorrow she has to start taking a look at things, while she tries to get her life in order. The meat was finally ready. And start eating. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from the plants behind him. When he looked, he couldn't believe what he saw. It was the majestic but deadly green tiger. He reminded the class that if you come across one of these unarmed, you should be prepared to lose your life. But that's all nonsense, he thinks. Now that he comes face to face with this beast, he puts poison on the raw meat, and throws it at the tiger, thinking he would eat it. But the tiger didn't even pay attention to him, and just stared at him. The tiger was getting ready to attack. And he seemed to have gone into berserker mode. The animal wanted fresh meat, and started thinking about what to do next. When the tiger started running after him, he had no choice but to run as fast as he could. He tried to lure the tiger towards the plants, and was almost bitten by the beast as he screamed in fear. Luckily, the tiger stepped on a slippery part, and fell to the ground, giving him the opportunity to run further away from that deadly and hungry beast. This was his plan from the beginning, and now he needed to run as far as possible. The tiger roared with rage as our protagonist kept running away. Now, he sits by a tree and reflects on the experience. It was so terrifying that he thought he was going to die at that moment. He began to lose hope in his new life because of what happened on the first day. And now think about the future in that forest. When she started crying, she heard a noise again, and it was getting louder as she got closer. He quickly got ready, sure that he was the tiger again. I knew I couldn't win this fight, so I needed to run. Because it was too dangerous. He decided to leave the place and return to the village, to start all over again. But he stayed, because I knew there was nothing I could do there. Then, he remembered all the bad things he went through being an adventurer, and it was so depressing that he couldn't take it anymore. She started crying, remembering everything, because she knew that running wouldn't make anything better. Now, he had no choice but to face reality, because this desolate land is all he has left, and his life is here now. He climbed up a tree and called the tiger, who was looking for him. The tiger growled as he peeked out from below. He tried to throw more raw meat at him, but the tiger still ignored him because he wanted fresh meat. The day finally dawned, but the tiger was still there, waiting for him to come down. Now he had a strategy to defeat the tiger, but he was not sure if it would work, and if he made a mistake, he would definitely die. The tiger tried to jump to reach him, but he used the axe to somehow intimidate the animal from climbing the tree. But that was his plan from the beginning, and the tiger fell into a field of flowers that he thought was very dangerous. The plan worked. And finally the threat disappeared, and it seemed that the tiger was knocked unconscious the moment he fell among the flowers. I was sure that that field of flowers was a trap. And these mysterious white flowers probably have such a strong sleeping effect that they make anyone fall into deep sleep and never wake up. He got down from the tree, covered his nose, and went to get some valuable objects and some tiger meat. I was so happy to have won the battle against the green tiger, and also to have obtained some useful materials. Night fell, and now he was cooking the tiger meat he got earlier. He was hungry and remembered that he was in the middle of a meal before all this happened. In the end, he didn't like the taste of green tiger meat very much, but he had no other choice. Then she went to bed, and started thinking about the delicious meals she wanted to eat. He looked at the sky and reflected that life there was hard. But he needed to try a little harder, because, after all, this place is his personal hell, but he is sure that he will find a way around it. The next day, he wonders where is this place that looks like a city in Japan, and wonders what was happening to it. He is completely disoriented, wondering what this strange place is and what could be that thing that looks like a TV and a computer keyboard. Suddenly he opens his eyes and sees the blue sky above. Well, it was all a dream, but he was still confused about what those things were that he saw in the dream. Now he gets up and prepares for another day in this strange place that is now his. He can't stop thinking about this dream, because it's one he's had countless times since he was a kid, and he wonders where that place might be. Suddenly, something catches your eye first thing in the morning. It's okay. And she's trying to get her purse back. He quickly grabs his axe to kill the goo. He strikes her core to kill her quickly, but realize that the axe is now a little dull. He is relieved that the bag is safe, and thinks that maybe he is getting stronger. Why were you able to deal with the goo quickly this time? He gets serious and prepares for another exploration of this hellish place. You should at least get acquainted with this whole place, because after all, this is your land. Something caught his attention. A creature named Amia, who has the upper body of a woman and the torso of a snake. He thinks she's already dead. He knows that these creatures are strong. And he noticed something in his mouth, a poisonous sting instantly. He thinks it's because of the meat he threw at Gerald Green Tiger. Dan immediately harvests as much useful as he can from this dead creature, and continues to venture into the deepest parts of the forest. She has seen some mushrooms that look edible, but wonders if she will actually be able to eat them. He is becoming very cautious about the place, because it is too dangerous to approach the plants of this hell without thinking about it first. First, he takes a cute little mouse and throws it into the mushrooms to see the reaction. It seems that the little mouse lost consciousness after touching the mushrooms, and then they released something that looks like smoke. The mouse has become paralyzed and seems to no longer move. This is another natural trap. And it seems that there is no way to be normal with these strange plants that exist. Then, suddenly, he has an idea. He makes his own trap. Because that's the only way someone like him, who hasn't received any proper combat training, can fight these monsters with pure determination. He knows he can survive in these lands. Finally, he finished digging a hole. He placed the flower that causes sleep paralysis and the fungus that causes paralysis in the hole, covered with leaves. And now his trap was set. He returns to the camp and rests, complaining that he is starving. He hopes to catch something big tomorrow. The next day, he wakes up and decides to immediately go to the trap he set, hoping to have caught something edible. He is very surprised by what he sees now. It was a giant boar, and it is very big. And he's still sleeping. Now think about what to do next. First, he kills the boar so that he can start cutting and collecting the objects that he can take from it. Then, he starts to open the animal's body with a knife and is surprised to see a blue snake inside the boar's stomach. The ecosystem of this place is very strange. It's already dark. And finally finished working on the giant boar, getting a lot of useful materials, especially meat. Now he starts grilling the meat, and it's been a while since he ate a decent meat like this. She eats it and is so happy it tastes delicious. He looks at the tools and thinks that the knife and the axe he brought are getting dull and need to be replaced. He looks at the bones of the giant boar and thinks that maybe he can do something with them. He starts carving the bones and has now made a weapon out of the giant boar's bones, hoping it will be good enough. He tried to wield the gun, and it feels quite heavy, but quite easy to handle. The next thing he made was an axe, and once the tree sap solidifies, it should be hard as a stone. Then he poured it into the mold he made of clay. Finally, the axe was ready. Your new weapons are ready for the next adventure. Then, he realizes that it is morning. He was so engrossed in making the tools that he didn't even feel tired. He decides to make another cheat. He finished setting up the trap so quickly that he realized that he had worked much harder than yesterday. Maybe he's getting stronger, or maybe it's because he's done this kind of work before, or maybe it's because of all the meat he's eaten. That gave him strength, but he's not sure. He just knows that he's happy with the things he noticed about himself. Because it didn't matter what he did before. He couldn't get any stronger. The next day, he continues to venture into the deepest parts of the forest, until he saw a cave. He found a torch. I used it and tried to call inside, because maybe someone lived there. He sees a house inside. It seems that the place has already been abandoned, but there are indications that someone lived there in the past. Continue to explore the interior. And there was a body of someone sitting on a chair. And holding a book, he noticed the initials written on the back that are PJ. He picked up the book, which looked like a diary with records and lists of monsters. Edible plants and medicinal herbs from this place seems to be vital information to survive in these parts of the forest. He noticed some strange drawings or sketches in the book. It seemed that the guy was writing about the guardian of the ruins, and that he was struggling with something. Then maybe there are ruins in this demonic realm, but he didn't include many details in the book. It seems that
PJ was doing some research about this place, but he can't fully understand what PJ was trying to write for now. PJ's last note says that his only regret was not having solved the mystery of these lands. He took PJ's core and buried it right outside. After that, he returned to the cave and saw the warehouse full of strange metals, weapons and armor. Maybe PJ did all this himself, and he thinks PJ must have been a very skilled adventurer. Now think, how did a guy like that die? But no matter how curious you are about PJ's death, some things will still remain a mystery. First of all, you should be glad that you found this cave. He noted that the interior of the cave is pristine and can be a relatively safe place. She ran to her campsite to get her things because she decided to move there. He thinks it's cool to build a house around a cave, and it could end up being a beautiful place. First, he decided to clean everything, then repaired everything he could, and did what was missing with the available materials. He's finally finished everything, and he thinks that's enough. He welcomed her to his new home when she returned. But, of course, no one will welcome him because he is alone. But of course, he knows that being free of problematic human relationships suits him well, and he is happier for it. Several days have passed, and it seems that the Estonian soldiers are in trouble. Now they are facing a huge and fierce bear. He must be killed before he goes to the main road. Suddenly, a man appears before her eyes. And guess who it is? He is our protagonist. He told the soldiers that he was there to help defeat the giant bear. Another soldier thinks he's just a civilian. Now he's getting ready to kill the bear. The bear attacked, but he dodged it as if nothing had happened. Now he jumps to the top of a tree and prepares for a counterattack. Kill the bear in one fell swoop, without breaking a sweat, while adopting an amazing pose. The soldiers were shocked by what they saw. They asked him who he is, and he asked if they had wheat seeds or vegetables, or if they could exchange them for monster meat or magic stones. "We have a bunch at the training center," the soldier said, "and you can get some if you come with us." He also wants coal and paper and is willing to trade with them. He got everything he needed at the soldier's facility. He is already very used to life in this cursed land, but there are still many places left that he has not been to. So he needs to make a map of this whole place. He also wonders when he became so strong. And maybe it's because he lives in this cursed land, surrounded by difficult enemies. And he had no choice but to strengthen himself to survive. He came to the river and looked at the water, surprised to see his reflection. He hadn't showered since he arrived because he was focused on hunting. Now she took a quick shower to refresh herself from everything that has happened. He returned to his land to start planting the vegetable seeds he took from the soldiers. He started working on his farm, then he noticed that he hit something hard, and suddenly the earth moved. Well, he was beating up a giant turtle the whole time. And now she is in front of him. He orders her to go in another direction so as not to spoil his plantation, but the turtle attacked him and threw him. She fell in the mud and complained because she had just taken a shower. Now he is angry with the turtle and decides to fight with her. The turtle suddenly fell and splashed it with mud again. Suddenly, the turtle died because it fell into a wild swamp. Well, he smiled because he knows what to do next. She made turtle stew, and she thinks the meat is delicious, but the soup that is made with it is more irresistible. The next morning, he decided to go to sea. It needs more salt to preserve all the meat it got from the turtle. He continues to draw a map while looking for the sea. Now, he looks for a river from the top of the hill and is sure that if he follows the river, he will find the sea at the end. He finally reached the sea. He does not believe that even on this cursed land, there is a real sea here. He immediately starts collecting salt from the sea water, but then he notices something on the beach. There's someone lying next to the beach. He wonders if he's a human or something. But she has horns. Apparently she's a girl, so maybe she's not human. After all, he decides what to do with her. But then again, this is their land. So, this girl is trespassing on your property. He hasn't seen anything for a while, and he's still making salt. But it seems that you can't just do nothing when someone needs help. He decides to look for medicines, and was even chased by a T-Rex-type monster for that. He quickly makes herb-based medicines to treat his wounds. Apply it on wounds and other parts that need to be treated. He puts a piece of wood on her head so she can rest properly. He sees that the sun is already setting, and he needs to find food. He picked up some crabs and roasted them. And he really enjoys eating this. Suddenly, the girl wakes up and sneaks up on him. He thought she was going to attack him, but she woke up to the smell of food. It seems that he has no choice but to give her some food. Now he talks to her and tells her to get out of this demonic land because it is his territory. But it seems that she does not understand the words he says and also does not know how to speak the human language. The girl calls him Makyo, and finally our main character has a name. He tells her that this is not a man, but the girl keeps calling him Makyo, and it seems difficult to correct her. It seems that he has no choice but to accept that this girl calls him Makil. And he also asks her what her name is. The girl said her name is Cher. Cher asks Maquil if she wants to eat more crab. Maquillo says that there are no more left. He asks Cher how he got to she. Cher can't explain it with words, then he draws in the sand. So that Maquillo understands his explanation. Although he is messy, Maquillo somehow understands, according to his drawings, that he escaped from some kind of conflict between the demons. And that's why he got there. Cher asked her what she was doing. He says he's making salt with seawater. Suddenly, Cher creates a kind of fireball while raising her hand. Makil is impressed, but at the same time fearful of the huge fireball she created. It seems he just wanted to prove that he can create fire magic. Maybe he wants to help Makil make salt. He lets her help while he takes a nap, and thinks maybe Cher can teach him magic while she's there. The next morning, he wakes up to find Cher by his side still sleeping. Check if the salt is ready and see that there is a lot of salt now. M'Quillo realizes that he can get things done faster if he has company like Cher. He wakes up and tells her to accompany him to his house. Eventually, I would ask him to build a boat and send her back, but for now, he will let her take her place for a while. Continue to follow MCG. He was so full of energy, and he was running back and forth. But suddenly all that energy disappeared, and Cher seems to be very tired now. She was even attacked by a vein that drained her mana, which made her remember M'Quillo when she was weak. They finally reached their cave. Cher was so happy to see the inside of M'Quillo's house, even her face turned red. And M'Quillo kept waving to the house. As he waved into the house, Cher was also watching him. Then, suddenly, Cher screams, I'm here, and Makio told her that this was not her house, but his. Cher immediately lies down and sleeps on Makio's bed, maybe because she was too tired from the walk to fall asleep so quickly. Makio's purpose in bringing her here was to think that he might be useful, but he might end up being a burden. And if he gets caught harboring a demon, you will surely be arrested, as it is against their law. He decides to send her back to the place she came from as soon as she wakes up, because Makio likes to live alone on his land. But he thinks that he doesn't need to wait until tomorrow morning, and that I should wake up the time and explain everything to him properly. Look at Cher crying in her sleep, and maybe she's having a nightmare. But M'Quillo notes something about her situation reminded him when he didn't have a place to return to, she was just like him. The next day, Cher wants to accompany Mao on his adventures, but she is already exhausted. Mao tells him that he doesn't have much
stamina, and that without it he won't survive in this hellish place. It seems that Mao has no other choice now. He decides to train Cher so that she will not be a burden on his explorations. He instructs her to catch as many forest rats as possible. Cher did her best to catch as many rats as she could. But it seems to be a lost cause. The next training is combat training. And Makio doesn't know what to expect. Apparently, Cher is some kind of magician. Then he tried to cast his spells, and by the looks of it, it's not going well. She missed the monkey, which is the target of her attack, and Makio tells her to aim straight before shooting. Makio instructs him not to close his eyes when he tries to attack an enemy. The monkey realizes what they are planning and sets off. Makio tells Cher that he's going to die here if he's not careful, and tells her to shoot now. But in the end, Makio is the one who got hit by his spell, while Macax watches confused. Makio scolds Acre for having terrible aim. Cher continues to train to improve her aim and not disappoint Makio anymore. He finally hits the monkey right on the chest, and immediately brags about what he did, which angers M'Quillo. The evening has finally arrived, and it's time to go home. While carrying it, Makio is not happy that only one emerald monkey was captured today, and believes that the future looks bleak. While she was at the camp they set up, she asked Cher to teach her some magic. He got very excited when she asked and immediately showed her he touched her hands, as if he was trying to intertwine them with his. And suddenly it began to glow in both hands. And Mel was surprised. It was as if the light was flowing from the hands of the male servers, and he thinks that maybe it's a magical power. Mel feels something really strange, but she just smiles with a little embarrassment. Suddenly, Cher lets go of her hands and now she's angry, muttering words that M'Quillo can't understand. M'Quillo asks her what's wrong, but she continues muttering unknown words. He tried to explain what he wanted by drawing on the ground. Cherry said that his magic power was very high, but M'Quillo doesn't understand, because he doesn't even use magic. He wonders when he acquired so much magic power, and maybe it's because he trained and became stronger in this place. Well, he didn't pay much attention to it because he doesn't use magic when he fights someone or something. But maybe now I can use basic life magic. Cher just looks at him with disappointment. And now M'Quillo is starting to wonder if he can really do it. He tried to visualize. Because the most basic form of magic has to do with visualization, and now he tries to concentrate, to conjure something from his hand. Finally, he conjured fire out of nothing. At least now he understands a little bit about the flow of magic. But he needs to train if he wants to conjure a bigger fire than this, because this little one is not fit for combat. The next morning, Makio tells Cher that today they will defeat as many monsters as possible while training, and return home. Makio decides that they should follow the cliff path, which is very high. Makio tells Cher that she can use wind magic to fly if she can. But it seems that Cher can't control her wind magic. And it shows on your face. It's impossible for her to climb that mountain. Then, Mikiwa remembers again that this is part of her training, so she must stop complaining if she wants to survive in these lands. She is suddenly chased by a big moth, but Makio tells her that it's the perfect time to train and tells her to defeat it alone. Cher gets serious now and decides to fight desperately. Suddenly, the moth releases a kind of dust from its mouth. It seems that Cher was taken by surprise by the moth attack. Mikao immediately grabs the trunk of a tree after realizing that the situation is getting dangerous for Cher. Cher was paralyzed by the moth attack. Mikao had no choice but to interfere in the fight before things got worse. He hits the moth right in the face and immediately checks to see if Cher is okay. Cher wakes up and points to the moth. Cher, that was the magic stone of the moth that killed Makio. She tells Makio that she wants to be placed on top of a branch to make it look like a cane. Makio understands what he means and immediately makes it personal. Makio made the staff with the magic cock stone, which has a paralyzing effect on enemies. Now, Cher seems to have evolved several times after receiving the staff that Makio made. This is the beginning of Cher's triumphant journey. They continued their training from there and Cher seems much stronger now. He even defeated a hornet wasp, which is a more dangerous monster than the police. He combined paralysis magic and fire magic to kill was for neat. Mikhook was surprised at how quickly Cher improved after getting the staff, and for the next few days, they continued to hunt monsters using the paralysis combination. Now they have collected so many magic stones from the monsters they killed. And Makio also improved his magic skills a little, but it's still not enough for combat. They got used to the terrain and their movements completely changed. And of course, Mikil is glad that they are moving faster. Cher called Mikil and pointed to the top of a tree. Miquillo told her that those were imps in a group, and it looked like they were having fun, but Cher immediately cast a spell on them. And Miquillo told her to stop, but she didn't listen, she needs to retreat because there are too many. But he still attacked the imps. The imps were paralyzed by Cherry's spell. They fell from the tree where they were sitting. Suddenly, something made a huge noise. When they looked, they discovered that the tree was also a monster, and now it was furious. Maquio was scared because the tree monster, named Trent, is a dangerous type of monster, but Cher still attacked with her magic. Now, Trent was more angry than ever about what he did. Makeo immediately charged Cher, because this is not a fight they can win, as Trent is much stronger than any monster they have faced before. Miquillo started running quickly before Trent reached them, but Chun threw some spells to counterattack Trent, even though he was on Miquillo's back. Then, Trent suddenly stops. Miquillo thought that the paralysis was taking effect on Trent, but he was very wrong, and Trent hit them with his big roots. Fortunately, he managed to dodge it well, but Miquillo hurt his eye while still running. It looks like Trent will catch up with them in the next attack, so he needs to run faster. She looks back and sees her roots, or perhaps branches, chasing after them with devastating force. Suddenly, something came to Makio's mind, and it's the TV he dreamed about several days ago. Suddenly it starts floating in the air, suddenly they are flying now. And Makio thinks this is Cher's doing. Then, they landed face down on the top of the mountain. Finally, they are safe from that danger. She asked Cher if that was her magic. But Cher said it wasn't her magic, which means it was Mako's magic the whole time that made them fly. He remembered the moment he started floating. What he had in his head was that mysterious image that had appeared in his dreams for a long time. Since she was young, and it was as if she was in another world, Cher healed the wound on the side of her face. He asked Cher to teach him how to do recovery magic next time, but Cherzal muttered some words that he couldn't understand. The next day, he started training his magic, and tried to imbue fire magic into his knife. It seems to be working now, but he threw it away because he can't stand the heat it generates. Well, the knife was made from a coconut tree. Of course the fire was going to burn her, and she was useless. He tried various materials, such as hell beetle horns and tweezer front legs. But nothing seemed to fit in well with his magic. He tried to remember the moment he flew and concentrated on visualizing it. He immediately felt the strong power in his hands, and it seemed that he was going to succeed now. But Cher suddenly called him, and told him that the food was ready. Ready. It hit the ground and made a big hole, like Naruto's Rasengan. Both of them were shocked by the result of what Maku just did. Suddenly, Sierra muttered and made a lot of noise. Then Maku thought that maybe it was a magic still unknown to the demonic race. Maku smiled, and thought that maybe he had made an amazing discovery. They went to the cave to eat. But Mia was disappointed with what he prepared for her. He decided to cook the meal, and asked Aker to take care of him so he could learn from him. Maku made them bread. Aker liked it very much and said it was delicious. He was glad that Hatcher liked what he was doing, but again Maku thought that the day would come when he would send Aker back to the place he came from. Maku decided that they would cut some wood to build a boat today, so Char could come home whenever she wanted. He started cutting down a big tree, but he had difficulties because he didn't have a proper tool, and it was quite a job. Then suddenly, he remembered something. He has an arsenal full of weapons and tools of all kinds. He quickly returned to the cave, and returned with a beautiful sword. It was one of the mysterious metal weapons of the PJ, and he combined it with his wind magic. Then Mia went back to cutting down trees when she used it. She only ended up destroying a lot of trees, because she shot a Rasengan-like wind ball, which damaged a lot of trees in its path. Maku thought it was too dangerous to use it, and it was not good for felling trees. To be careful when using the PC weapons, because he felt that the magic conductivity of these materials was very high, and it was dangerous to use it recklessly. But the trees cut down were enough to start building Char's boat. He thought it wasn't forming very well, and maybe it was because the wood wasn't dry enough, so he decided to wait for it to dry. He thought about trying to practice and infuse magic into various parts of his body. Cher asked for permission to hunt demons, and he told her to be careful in her little adventure. Finally the sunset came, and Cher brought her some bread. They enjoyed their meal, while chatting a little about the adventure of Casa de Charantes. The next morning, Mia woke up and noticed that it had suddenly become noisy and strangely cold. When he looked down, he saw that they were already flying in the air. It turns out that he was captured by dragons called Alive, and it seemed that these guys were very hungry. Cher was also kidnapped by another Alive, but she doesn't know it yet because she's still asleep. Now Maku thinks of a way to escape from these flying monsters. But it's too high to do anything for now. Cher woke up and immediately attacked the living with her fire magic. Maku had no choice but to attack the living one carrying him, and used his knife to cut the living one's claw. He fell, but he already knew how to infuse magic into his body. He immediately confronts the living head-on, infusing earth magic into his hand, and rips out her tooth. He then continues with a punch to the head, while his fist is still imbued with earth magic. He keeps hitting until the living die and fall to the ground. Before he fell, he infused wind magic into his feet. He also crushed the face of the living to the ground, to make sure to kill him. He looks at Cher in the air, seeing how she's doing in her fight. He was impressed with what she did by practicing water magic, but he drowned in the air while doing it. How careless. Mako immediately helped her. The sun is already setting, and they are in a rocky area with nothing but rocks and sand, and not having their belongings with them. In addition, there is a sandstorm, so they had no choice but to spend the night there. The next morning, she realizes that Sari is sick. Her fever is very high, and it could be a cold she caught from drowning in the water. He needs to find some medicine, and he can't seem to find any shirbashi. Remember the book the PJ gave him, and see if he can find any useful information. In the book it is written that the magic stone of union is a medicine for colds. Remember that those imps were with that train that was chasing them, that's in the swamps, that's quite far from here. But he has no other choice. He made a roof with the living membrane, so that it would get shade from the sun. He infused magic into his legs and started running. He ran as fast as if it was Justice League Flash or Voice Train. He reached the swamps in a very short time. He quickly killed a whim to get the magic stone. After obtaining the magic stone, something familiar emitted a sound. Well, it was his old friend, Trent, who got really mad at him again for killing his pet whim. Trent started attacking him, but Maku dodged him and told Trent that he didn't have time for that. He infused earth magic into her feet and stepped on the roots of the train to break them. He also infused fire magic into his hands and hit Trent hard. Looks like Trent was hurt by this. He followed up with another punch infused with fire magic, and it looks like he finally defeated the tree monster. After that, he quickly returned to share in the deserted place. Mako seemed exhausted from what had happened, but finally returned with the medicine. He then used the magic stone to treat Cher's disease. She noticed something that looked like black smoke following the magic stone, and maybe this was what was causing Cher's cold. Cher was completely healed after this, and now she smiles at Mako for what he did for her. Mako was also happy that it had worked out well. Now Cher won't stop clinging to Mako, and Mao complains because her horns are hitting him. Meanwhile, at the border of the demon land, some adventurers entered Mako's territory. Looks like Mao will need to welcome her visitors home. Maku and Cher finally returned home, and now Maku wants to start working in the field. He decides to use magic to bring water to the fields so that the plants grow well. Suddenly, Cher calls out to him and points in a direction. Cher tells her that they have some visitors, and by the looks of it, they are strong adventurers. Maku decides not to confront them right away and prefers to just watch them for now. They faced a slime monster in the demon land, and the guy who seems to be the group captain told the team to aim for the core. But it seems that they are having a hard time fighting this low-level monster. They were taken by surprise because they didn't know that the monsters here in the land of demons are of a different level, and even ordinary slime are surprisingly strong. Now they are facing a big snake, and they are really trying their best. He sees that these adventurers use chaotic and clumsy tactics, like they have experience and can't even aim at the core properly. While Cher got bored of watching, they got exhausted from fighting, and seemed to have run out of magic. But they still want to go deeper into the forest. Now Maku decides to talk to them, because after all, he is the lord of these lands. He calls him, and asks them what they are doing there. They introduce themselves as the group of adventurers called White Lightning. And they claim that they came here to look for battles against strong monsters, and they plan to kill all the monsters they find. The captain shows Miquillo his adventurer's card. Now Miquillo tells them that this area is private property, and that they should not enter here without his permission. Why would it be a bother if they were injured or died here? The captain got angry and said that they did not need permission because it was a recognized group even in the city. Mac-O told him that she was watching, and that, by the looks of it, they might die here. Because they were fighting with the silts, and it would be very dangerous for them to go deeper into the forest. Suddenly, a strange-looking dragon lands, and it looks like it is already chewing something. They immediately run away scared, and it seems like they are going back to the city, while Makio just watches them run like chickens. But it seems that they forgot about one of their classmates and left her here. Miquillo thinks it's his cleric, who is still unconscious. Now Miquillo is thinking about what to do with it. They returned to the cave and got several magic stones. He plans to go to the training center to exchange some items, and he plans to leave the cleric there as well. Miquillo told Cher to hide her horns well so people wouldn't notice. They have finished packing and are ready to head to the training center. He instills magic in his legs, and now he is heading to the facility. They finally reached their destination. Mikao immediately went to the person in charge and explained the reason for his visit. He also introduced Cher as his companion and said that although she was small, she is a reliable ally. And with her they doubled the usual amount of magic stones collected. He also wants to leave this cleric who fainted in the land of demons. Well, it looks like things are getting pretty interesting in the land of demons, said the man. The man was impressed with what Miquillo did with the green tiger's tusk, transforming it into a sword. Miquillo also ordered some metal swords, some sewing tools, woodworking tools, and also women's clothes for Cher. Finally, she asked for a witchcraft book about magic and space-time. The man warned that this book he is looking for is very expensive, and there are also many counterfeit books that are also expensive. To be sure, he advised Makio to go to the capital and look for it himself, to avoid being deceived. Makio understood what he was saying and decided that he would look for the capital himself. The next day, Makio decided to look for the ruins that were said to be in the land of demons, mentioned in the PC notebook. They were very excited about today's mission. But the problem is that the location of the ruins is not written in the PC notebook. Come to think of it, he still can't even understand Demonland's general map. And that seems like a serious problem. He checks the map and focuses on the southern part, where it has not been explored yet. and thinks that this is the part where they should go to find something new. They decide to go south and check it out. They faced some monsters that they had never seen before, but they had no problems with it. Now they have reached the desert parts of the earth. He is still confused about why there is a desert there, and thinks that maybe he missed something along the way. Suddenly, a big monster appears in their field of vision, and its size is really huge, surprising even them. He checked the notebook, and saw that this monster is a sandworm. He is very big, but he wonders why he belongs to the category of the weakest monsters. Makio asks which part is weak as they both run away from him. He tried to use a magic sword to fight the worm, but it barely made a scratch on their thick skin, and now they think they have no choice but to run as fast as they can. While the sandworm is chasing them, they are back in the forest, and they are catching their breath after so much running. He wonders where the monster's weakness could be, and who the hell PJ is. He decides to return home, and investigate more about these monsters, and how to defeat them. From the notebook, Makio believes he has found something like a weapon decisively different from his own. He has seen a drawing of a magic circle appear in various places, and it is also in the notebook. Now he tries to channel the magic power through him. It suddenly exploded, and they were both shocked by the result. He sees that the magic circle cuts the space as if it were paper. When reviewing PJ's weapons, he sees that they all have magic circles built in. But they are not easy to notice because they are integrated into the decoration of the items. Now he is more perplexed about who this PJ is, and maybe he is a very skilled craftsman. He wonders how PJ died on this earth. The next morning, Makio decides to return to the desert to fight a sand monster using PJ's sword. But first they must go and get water. They went to the river to get water and did not know that the clergyman had returned and was behind them. Miquillo then wrote it down and quickly asked him what he was doing there. The girl immediately introduced herself as Jennifer Bove and said that she had already left her group and now wanted to live in the land of Miquillo. Well, Miquillo instantly refused while they were still looking for water. But Jennifer insisted and said that it could be useful to her because she can heal injuries and diseases. And she can also manage consumables for parties. And again, he asked Miquillo to accept it. Miquillo still refused instantly. She tried to convince him and told him that she was from the north and that she could stand the cold. Miquillo was confused and told Jennifer that maybe she had been kicked out of the group and that's why she came back there. Jennifer said it was none of her business. Miquillo said again that he still did not accept her to stay on his land. Jennifer finally told the truth, that her group told her that she was no longer needed, and started begging Miquillo to let her live on those lands. Miquillo asked why she was not returning to her place of origin or her home. But Jennifer replied that she did not have a home to return to because she was an orphan. Well, anyway, she still can't live here, and it's better to go to a safe place than to this land of demons. But Jennifer still insisted because this land was the place she had been looking for all her life. Because she knew that no one would betray her here and it was a wonderful and ideal place without anyone. Maki shouted that she actually had the courage to say those words in front of the landowner, but Jennifer was stubborn and asked Maki to guide her to a house. Miquillo told her that if she really wanted to live there, she would have to pay rent, and also promised not to make a fuss about anything she saw there. She replied that she would receive the money for the rent. Miquillo then warned him to be careful with the monsters that were there. Well, she was attacked by a slime, and is now exhausted due to lack of mana. Now Miquillo decides to let her stay in his cave for a while, because it would be a problem if she died and turned into a monster. Jennifer suddenly screams that there is a demon inside her house. Well, he was talking about Cher because he saw her horns. Then Miquillo reminded him of the rule he had implemented of not making a fuss about what he saw there. Miquillo ate a loaf of bread and decided to water the fields. Jennifer follows Miquillo and continues asking if it's really safe to keep a demon like Asia around. Makeo simply tells her to be nice to Asia because although she is a demon, she is a good person, so he should treat her with respect. But she is not safe there. If she is discovered, she will be taken before the guards. Something that happened 100 years ago, McHub said, and asked Jennifer if persecuting innocent people is now the teaching of the church. McHub tells her that she should leave Cher alone, while she is teaching McHub magic to pay the rent. And McQuill is really starting to accept that. Then he tells her that if she can't pay the rent, she'd better leave. But Jennifer replies that she has 10 gold coins, and that maybe that will be enough to pay a month's rent. Miquillo looks at her and tells her that 10 coins is fine. Jennifer hands him a check, but Mikao says it's not a gold coin. Mick Hook says she doesn't accept checks, but Jennifer, being from the countryside, was used to paying with checks in the capital. Or you can go to a money changer to exchange it for gold, but there are no money changers there, McJub said. Jennifer got angry and said that instead of paying him, she would just work for him, like washing dishes and collecting firewood or maybe cooking something for him, but her expression suddenly changed, and she said she would do anything. And one day she would get better in this hellish place, then she would take revenge on the group that kicked her out. McQuillo didn't like what she said, and said it wasn't the right place for her, and again, he asked her to leave. Jennifer asked why she was saying that, to which McQuillo replied that she now understood why she was expelled from her group. And that's because he doesn't know how to listen to others. She's the type who gets angry when things don't go her way. And if you stay there, things will rarely turn out the way you want. Because the land of demons is not an easy place, she was furious, and immediately walked away. They watched her as she walked away, because McQuillo thought it was for her sake, that it was better for her to be in the capital. Why is there no place for revenge there? The next day, they continued exploring the desert, and also took the PJ's sword. Then, Mikao did some stretches before infusing magic into his feet, to run really fast. Cheryl stopped and pointed in a direction. They saw Jennifer lying on the rocks and unconscious. They immediately approached the unconscious clergyman. McQuillo checked, and it looked like his legs were broken. But she was still breathing. He decided to take her to his cave, so that she could recover from her injuries. He healed her wounds with recovery magic and thought she would be fine for now. McQuillo then told Cher that he wanted to continue exploring the desert. They returned to the desert, and now they waited for the sand monster to appear, because they were ready to fight him. The sandworm appeared before his eyes, but McQuillo was so willing to fight that he used the PJ's sword and fought against him, easily cutting it into small pieces, as if it were snake meat. He laughed because he couldn't believe that he had killed the creature so easily with the PJ's sword. Now, they finally knew why PJ had classified the sandworm as a weak monster. But really, it was the sword that was amazing. McQuillo was still confused, because the book said that they should not touch poisonous plants there, but there were no plants there. They continued their trek to explore the innermost part of the desert, and suddenly, they saw something in the sky that looked like a parrot, or maybe a bird, Cher said. Then, Matthew tried to take a closer look, and they were surprised to see that it was a floating island in the sky with currents. Makwo smiled because maybe it was the ruins mentioned in PJ's notebook. Makwo decided that they should go up immediately. He was impressed by the size of the chain, and didn't even know what it was made of. They started to climb. But suddenly he felt something strange. He discovered that the current could repel his magic. No matter how much she covered her body with magic, the current seemed to absorb her. Cher tried too, but was instantly repelled. Now he wondered if who did something like that was really powerful, but for now they had to climb. They continued climbing these giant chains, and finally reached the floating island. First, they rested a little because they were exhausted from so much climbing, and also because chains absorbed some of their magic. They were surprised to see a city on this floating island. There were many houses and furniture, and also signs of cultural life, but it seemed that there was nothing there but some ruins. There also seemed to be no human bones and no signs of conflict. And he thought the whole island was uninhabited. Maybe all the people there just disappeared without a trace. Now McJuga found a grave in the center of the city. There was a note on the grave that said Peter Jefferson was laid to rest there. McHook was surprised to see it, and thought that was the meaning of the initials PJ. Now he asked if PJ was resting there, and who was that skeleton in the cave. The sun was finally setting. Then he decided that they should camp there for today. McQuillo couldn't sleep because of the freezing cold, so he asked Cher, and could cuddle up with her to warm up. Cher made a mistake, and thought she said hug. Then she immediately hugged him. He told her to stop, but Cherno stopped. In the morning they decided to return to the cave, because there were no more discoveries to be made on the floating island. McQuillo decided to heat up some water to take a shower, because he was covered in sand. After the shower, McQuillo and Cher ate some bread. Now he remembered Jennifer, and thought that maybe she had already left, but he was surprised to find Jennifer still lying on the bed. and thought that her condition had worsened. Now he saw her hand, and thought that the injuries were a little serious, so he immediately called Cher. Cher tried to treat her wounds with healing magic. After that, he asked her why she was still there. Jennifer told Matthew that she couldn't leave because there were monsters and plants attacking her instantly. He asked why she hadn't been cured after all. She is a clergyman, but Jennifer said she used too much magic and became powerless. Well, Miquillo didn't want to argue with her that day because he was too tired. Now she decided to sleep in her bed and asked Jennifer to keep the fire on. Matthew said he should do some work because he was eating his food too. The next morning, Mick, who finally woke up, and was surprised to see Jennifer still sitting in front of the fire. But he couldn't believe Jennifer kept the fire burning without sleeping. He was doing this because he hadn't been able to do anything since he arrived on this earth, and hadn't even been able to return to the city. Miquillo felt a little bad for her. He decided to give her a paralysis cane so that she could paralyze the monsters and reach the stream at the entrance. But Jennifer suddenly knelt down in front of him and told him that she would pay for the accommodation, only if he let her stay there for a while. Miquillo was shocked by what he said because this girl was really stubborn. He said that he was fully aware of all his flaws and weaknesses, and that if he left now without doing anything, nothing would change. Miko asked her again if she would try to change, and also asked if they still planned to take revenge on her former classmates who banished her. Miko told him the true story of her life, which was abandoned by her parents and left in a church, where he became a clergyman. Well, the sisters of the church told her that she should live freely, but they also expelled her from there. After that, she became an adventurer and joined a group, but she was also expelled. Seeking revenge was just an excuse he made up because the reality was that no one really needed it, because of his attitude of not recognizing his own weaknesses. Then Mikao asked if he had a purpose in this land of demons, and Jennifer replied that if he had a purpose, it would be for the Iker. He wants to be like them, able to live in this mystical and harsh realm without anyone needing him, because he thinks it's amazing. He begged Miquillo again to teach him about adventures. But Miquillo said that if she wants to learn, she will have to do it alone. Suddenly, Jennifer smiled vigorously and said that she would do it alone. Then he grabbed Cher and asked her to teach him how to make bread. Miquillo told her again that she could stay for a while and do whatever she wanted, and then she asked if she could use the empty space as a bed. He looked at Miquillo holding a gold coin and said it would be his payment in advance. Miquillo accepted, but said he had never seen an ancient gold coin like that. She replied that it was the only drop she received from a zombie, the only monster he defeated there in the land of demons. Later that day, Miquillo and Cher continued to do the paralysis stick. Jennifer came over and asked what they were doing. Miquillo replied that they were making poles to exchange at the training center, but that they were poorly made. Rather, they looked like gift items. Jennifer suddenly said out loud that what she was saying was not true. It seems that Jennifer, like the buffer, knows the quality of weapons, and now she tells Makio that that bat was far from cheap. Makio and Cher smiled, and were flattered by what she said, after they finished making the stick. Iker and Mick Juga now head to the training center, while Jennifer remains in the cave. Suddenly, Cher asks Mick about Jennifer and why she's still there. Mikao doesn't know what to tell Iker, so he just says that Jennifer wants to have adventures, and decided to be alone. And she seems to like Iker. They arrive at the training center, and the man tells them that the equipment he brought earlier was sold at a high price, and it seems that many customers are asking to manufacture more. He also received the magic book, but it's not about time and space or anything he has requested. The man says it's a beginner-level book. Mikao takes a look at the book and sees that it only has basic magic effects and magic circles, and thinks that it could still be useful to him. He takes the book and is also given some boat-building tools and some women's clothes. He immediately reads the book in his cave and continues studying about these magic circles. He still can't clearly understand the magic circles drawn on the PJ's weapons, and can roughly classify them into fire, water, earth and wind systems. Decide to copy these writings and drawings for future reference. Suddenly, Jennifer goes to his room and asks him why he is reading books, and also asks him if he is going to kill monsters. "I'm coming." Miquillo replies that he can go and defeat the monsters if he wants, because he is too busy right now studying the book. Jennifer just stares at him and decides to leave. Later, Jennifer thanks McQuill for getting her some great clothes. Mel replies that it wasn't outside the entrance to the demon land. There is another adventurer who plans to enter Mackle's private property the next day. Cherokeed Mackle, with a lot of energy and joy, with blood all over the body. McQuillo asks why she is full of blood, and she replies that it is not her blood, but that of the cloud turtle she killed. Then, he showed McQuillo something that seems to be not a normal stone, because it has lightning patterns written on it. McQuillo tries to infuse magic into it, but nothing happens, so maybe this is only done by humans. Acre asks her where she found him, and she says she found him in the swamp. I was also trying to teach Jennifer to swim, and it doesn't seem to be going well. McQuillo suspects that there may be ruins buried under the swamp, and decides to check it out, preparing to dive deep into the swamp. Now, Makio dives into the water, and has Maisha and Enchanted in his hand. To have a kind of flashlight to clearly see what is in the water. Suddenly, a giant monster fish attacks him, and wants to eat him. Makio then punches the sea monster on the side, to get rid of him. It looks like he left a hole in the monster's body. He then continues to dive deeper, using magic to dive straight in and create a current, so the giant fish can't disturb him. But now he can't see clearly because of the current, but he knows that there are ruins buried under the mud. He decides to keep creating streams to dig up the mud from the bottom. He returned to land because he could not see clearly, and decides to return when the water clears. Suddenly, he realizes that something is entering his land. There is a girl wearing a mask and holding a big hammer. He immediately asks him what is the goal in his land. The girl approaches carelessly, not realizing that she was floating in the water. Suddenly, a slime monster attacks the girl from behind. Cher tells Makio that they should help her, but Makio says that they should wait until she starts to drown completely. Now the girl is completely submerged and asks for help. Makio then rescues her and takes off her clothes. Miko is surprised to discover that the person who helped him was a woman because she thought he was a man because of his hairstyle. He scolds the girl and tells her that if she wants to venture into these lands, she must be stronger. Why do people who are easily defeated by the slimes have no hope here? Then the girl apologizes. The reason he came here is because he heard that the wands made at this place were of high quality. But Miko claims he only sells them to military training facilities. Then the girl begs him to sell it to her. Miko agrees to sell it to her, but she has to exchange it for high-value items because he doesn't need the money. Then the girl asks him to check his backpack, and maybe he will find something he wants to exchange. Makwo finds a book in his backpack that appears to be a history book. But Makwo asks whose story it is. The girl replies that it is about the history of this place, talking about all the author's imagination, like floating islands and giant monsters. Miku then proposes an exchange, a magic wand, for 10 history books. The girl is glad to hear this, but Miko hasn't made any wands yet, so she must come back next time to get her 10 wands. In the meantime, he will only accept 1 book for now. But the girl panics and says that she does not know when she will return here, and thinks that it is unfair not to receive anything. Makio then thinks what to do next. Makio asks her first if she can keep a secret, and if she can't, the deal is cancelled. But the girl instantly agrees to what he wants. Then Makillo shows her Chur's horns. She is very surprised to see someone from the demon tribe right in front of her. Makillo wants her to promise not to say a word about what she saw there. If you can't, the deal is off. The girl has no choice but to accept, because he needs the wands. Then Makillo orders Jennifer to check if there's anything they can exchange, and asks Cher to choose magic stones, and make the wands for them. Makillo then asks the girl why she needs the wands. He tells Makillo that instead, the bandits have turned against the government and need powerful weapons to fight. Suddenly, Jennifer whispers to him that she wants to talk privately for a moment. Jennifer suspects that this girl could be a thief, because all the items in her backpack are of high quality, and can only be found in noble houses or perhaps in a carriage. Jennifer also thinks she's seen her somewhere before. The girl listened to what they were saying and then tells them that she is not a thief. Makillo asks where he got all these high-quality items. He tells Makillo the truth about his identity, that she is actually a noble woman from Histakenia, and that her uncle, the lord of her city, sent her to buy some weapons. That's why she came here. Jennifer explains that Histiquia is the closest place to this land. And most people also think that this land is part of the territory of Histiquia, but it is not. Now Akio doesn't want to sell his weapons because of what he knows now, and tells him to run away immediately. The girl insists, and says that the people of eastern Kenya have no choice but to flee. Jennifer also adds that Histiquia is close to the land of the elves, and is known for his bravery and recklessness. In other words, the people there are wild. Miko thinks that maybe her uncle sent her for her safety. But she doesn't believe what Miquilo said, because she is the best Histiquia warrior. But the good news is that these items are not stolen, and that's what Makwo cares about. He reminds her again to keep the secret. Makwo then continues to investigate the swamp. But he still finds nothing significant in the ruins. The next day, Miquil decides to just read the book, and not go to the swamp. Read the history book about his own land. It is written in the book that this land used to be a country, but suddenly, a large number of people disappeared without warning. He also reads about floating islands that were devoured by giant beasts, and there was also a religion here, where servants were considered messengers of God. He also mentions that the territory had constant natural disasters, and perhaps the cave where they now live was a shelter before. But what Mako is worried about now is the truth about Histiquia, because the book claims that the land in Histiquia is fertile, but is often plagued by rebellions and wars. Perhaps these adventurers are responsible for the internal conflicts, and are trying to reclaim the greedy land. Miquilo thinks it's going to be a disaster, and the situation was chaos for the next few days. It seemed that another storm was coming to their land. The next day, Miquil went to the training center, and told the man about the girl who arrived on his land yesterday, and told him that there was a riot in a nearby village. But the man said the rebellion had already been suppressed, and they didn't have to worry about that. After touring the facility, they returned home. Suddenly it started to rain. But they kept going home, even with the rain, and with Makeup complaining about the bad timing of the rain. When they arrived at the cave, they saw Jennifer picking up some sandbags. She said that they needed to place the bags at the entrance of the cave, and also asked to check the fields. Miquilo ran to check, and saw that the water level was rising alarmingly, and it wouldn't take long for everything to flood. Then, he used his magic to elevate the field, and prevent it from flooding. He returned to the cave, and Jennifer asked how the fields were, and he replied that they were not good. Then, they said they would have to get vegetables and wheat through trade for a while. The rain continued heavy that day, and the next day it intensified even more. Sure thought they were in the middle of a hurricane. Makio decided to create some homemade traps, using the PJ's magic circle, since they couldn't get out. It planned to be a magical explosion that could destroy at least one leg of a big monster. Suddenly, he heard an explosion outside. Jerry and Jennifer asked Mick about. There was a gigantic thing in the middle of the storm. Mick then asked if there had always been a mountain there, but they noticed that the mountain was moving on its own. It was a giant magical beast that was mentioned in the PC notebook. It seemed that this mountain beast was causing storms and strong winds around him. This magical beast only appears once every 3 months, and also kills many monsters. Miquilo was still confused about where this huge thing was until now. The number of dead monsters was absurd. The tornado raised monsters and killed them instantly by lightning. Some parts of the cave also collapsed, and if they remained there, they could be buried alive. Then, he noticed that the monsters were fleeing to the north. I told Cher and Jennifer that they were going to run north. The magical beast continued to roar and cause chaos on Earth. They began to run away from the calamity that was happening. They ran and ran until they managed to escape. But it seemed that the lightning was following him. Even so, they continued to run towards the north of the map. They finally arrived in the desert. Miquilo stopped and looked at the current view. He thought that what was happening seemed like the end of the world. It seemed that the desert was not in good condition either, so he decided that they would return to the forest. They reached the forest, and immediately looked for a place to hide and rest. While walking, Miquilo did not notice the trap, and he and Jennifer fell into it. They got hurt a little bit by the fall. Then, he noticed something about the place. Miquilo tried to get up and thought that this place was an ancient well, or maybe ruins of people who lived there before. But suddenly he felt pain. His left leg was broken. Well, at least now they could shelter from the wind and cold for now. Cher was worried and called him. And he replied that he was alive and well down there. Cher came down and got some firewood. They lit a fire to warm up because it was so cold. They could still hear the footsteps of the magical beast, even though they were very far away. Jennifer suddenly apologizes for being a burden to them, and also thought that she was going to die earlier. But Miquillo said that they were still not safe there. Miquillo suddenly lost consciousness. Maybe because I was so tired. Tomorrow came, and Cher stuck her head out at Miquillo to wake him up. He didn't wake up easily, so Cher decided to scream to wake him up. Then he woke up. He felt that his foot was already healed, and Jennifer said that she used her healing magic on him. Cher called him to check out a tunnel she found. They went into the tunnel and used a flashlight because it was so dark. When they got to the end, they saw some shiny mushrooms. They thought it was beautiful, but Miquillo told them not to touch the mushrooms because they could contain poison or paralysis. In fact, it was an underground lake. But it was too dark to see clearly. Cher found something interesting again and showed it to Miquillo. It was a thunderstone. Miquillo asked her where she had found it, and she said that what she was holding was a skeleton. Miquillo checked if there was anything interesting, and they found a beginner's adventure guide in the core, which also had a very old design. They saw a drawing of a rock and a note saying not to lose the keys to the dungeon. Miquillo thought that maybe this round stone is the key to the dungeon. Miquillo said she had never been in a dungeon, while Jennifer explained that she had been in a dungeon before because that was what she and her former group did in the house. Then they read the note on the last page that said if the dungeon was stolen by a magical beast, then it would be finished. And that was too confusing. McHook then asked Jennifer if it was possible to steal a dungeon. Cher shouted that it was not possible to steal in a dungeon, and now they decided to leave that place. They came out of the well, and it seemed that the giant magical beast had finally left, and the weather was also clear now. Mikao saw that the forest was in terrible condition. They decided to return to the cave immediately. They found some dead monsters in the forest. Now Cher and Jennifer were complaining to McHook that they were hungry because they hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. But he wasn't hungry to eat these dead monsters. I told them to eat some kombucha seeds for now, just to keep the hunger going. They came to the cave, and it wasn't right. The room was full of stones and debris, and Miquillo suddenly felt very tired. Cher also said that they could no longer use wheat. Jennifer suggested that they clean the place first to make it habitable for them. The evening came, and Makio immediately went to bed the moment he had enough space for the three of them. They just rested for the night because they had been through a lot in the last 2 days. Makio wanted to take a shower, but he was so tired that he could hardly stand up. He felt something moving in his pocket and went to check it. It was the coin Jennifer gave him that was moving, throbbing like a man's heartbeat. Then it suddenly slipped out of his hand. He followed her because he already considered this gold coin as his precious property and tried to take it. But it seemed that she knew how to dodge him. He came out of the cave. And he still can't get the gold coin. Continue following them until you reach the forest. They passed through the swamp, and now McQuill is afraid that the coin may fall into the water. He tried to pick it up again, but the coin slipped away from him as if it were alive. Well, he ended up falling into the water after all the chasing he did. Now he is sad because he feels that he lost the gold coin. But suddenly someone emerged from the water, and it seemed as if he was floating in the air. Makio sees what appears to be the appearance of an elf. Makio was scared because he thought it was a ghost, but the apparition left and seemed to walk on water. Makio was terrified by what he had just seen. The next day, she told Jennifer Richer the terrifying story she found the night before when she saw a translucent elf ghost in the swamp. Sir was afraid of what he was saying, but Jennifer didn't seem to believe it. Then Jennifer asked if she had done anything to make the elf resent him, and Miquillo replied that he didn't do anything wrong to any elf. But Jennifer has a solution and says she just needs some holy water to calm her down. Then, Jennifer is the holy water. Why, after all, she is a priestess. She gives the final touch and the holy water is ready to be used. Miquillo puts the gold coin in the holy water to purify it. That day they continued to restore the cave to its original form. The three of them were so busy doing their chores that they also had to get food. Because all the food they had stored was destroyed. But he was surprised to see that the PJ's armor was intact, without a single scratch. Jennifer says maybe it's made of adamantium. One of here asked her what this is and Jennifer explained that it is an incredibly hard metal. That sometimes partners even fight among themselves to keep it, because it is very good armor. He forgot about the explosion circle he had made before leaving the cave. He got nervous because it looks like it was activated. He immediately warns the two girls that it is very dangerous there, and that they should not use that room for now. In the middle of the night, the coin started moving again. Looks like Jennifer's holy water didn't work. M'Quillo was scared again, because he thought the elf spirit was calling the coin. He decided to go out to try to stop this and went deeper into the swamp. Because the currency was moving in that direction. He thought he had gone quite far, and was not sure if he would be able to return safely. He realized that he had stepped on something strange and heard a voice. It was under the dry leaves. Then, no doubt, he passed over it again and heard someone's voice. Was there really someone there? He removed the leaves to see who was underneath, and was surprised at what he found. It was the elf she saw yesterday. But it wasn't translucent, it was a real body. After all, he wasn't a ghost, and I was still curious as to why he could be a zombie. The elf suddenly speaks to her, and tells her that she is alive and needs help. Also note that the currency has stopped moving. M'Quillo gave him some water to drink. The elf swallowed quickly, got up and apologized to M'Quill. He looked at her, impressed by how tall she was. M'Quill asked where he came from, and the elf replied that he came from beyond the mountains, from the country of the elves. Then he asked what her name was and the elf replied that her name was the Shinshilin, but he could call her Eli. M'Quillo introduced himself as the owner of this magical kingdom, and as a gesture of kindness, invited her to come to his house. Because she seemed very tired. Ellie accepted the invitation, and said she was swallowed up by the earth and couldn't move. She said she tried to look for other living beings using her spirit, and luckily it was the owner who found her. He then expressed his gratitude to Mao. Mao asked if he could stand up. It seems that she could not walk easily, so M'Quillo helped her to walk to the cave. Suddenly he noticed something on her shoulder and asked if she had hurt her shoulder. M'Quillo noticed the wound, and thought it was a mark cut with a knife. He can see that it is a magic circle of slavery, and immediately asked Elise if she was a runaway slave. Ellie explained that she was never anyone's slave, and that she ran away because she was about to be convicted of a crime. That would make her a criminal slave. He explained that he did not commit any crime. Some people in your land were planning to start a silly war, so he tried to stop her. But it was still considered treason and a criminal offense, which really made her a criminal slave. Mao said, "Well, she fled her country, that's all." He told Ellie. In the end, Ellie begged him to stay there for a while, and promised not to cause any problems. Mao thought to himself, here we go again. Then he told her she could stay there as long as she paid the rent. When they entered the cave, Jerry and Jennifer were surprised to see that Mikkel was returning with a strange company. She also greeted the two girls. Mikkel now had another forest girl in the group, and they seemed to keep coming one after another, and from different clans or races. Looks like he got another roommate. He just hopes that this elf won't cause him too much trouble. Because in those moments, I wasn't even thinking about it, I was just trying to help. The next morning, while they were having breakfast, Mikko complained that the food was very soft. Satcher told him that they had run out of wheat. Now M'Quillo knows that this is going to go wrong, and it could be that everything has been taken away by the giant magical beast. Jennifer said they needed to go to the training center to exchange some supplies. Mikhail asked what they should take in return, since almost all the food and weapons were ruined. Jennifer said wands might be the easiest things to make. And they could also use monster companions and potion ingredients. Mia was surprised when he talked about potions, and asked her if she really studied pharmacology. Then Jennifer replied that only those things that could be sold in the market. Then Cher talked about elvish potions. Now they have turned their attention to Ellie, since making potions is the specialty of elves. Of course he knows how to do it, and he told M'Quillo that that would be his compensation for the rent. So, she immediately went to collect ingredients. It turns out that Ellie is a slightly clumsy person, and soon got into trouble, and was stung by scorpions. M'Quillo helped her right away, and asked if she was still alive. He told Cher to go with him to collect magic stones for the wands, and also told Jennifer. to gather some edible plants and useful materials near the cave. He also asked her to start making potions with all the materials they had collected. They did all the assigned tasks that day until night came. Miquillo showed everyone the magic stones and other useful items that Helliker had gathered in the forest, but one item caught everyone's attention. Jennifer asked how they found that, because it's great for bartering. Mikkel was happy to have got a good find today. Ellie also told Mikkel that she finished making all the healing potions, and left the medicinal herbs there for a while to check their quality. The next day, Mikhail and Cher were on their way to the training center, and told Jennifer and Ellie to take care of things while they were gone. When they arrived at the premises, they were surprised by all the noise they heard inside. It turns out that the soldiers were trying to fight or hold someone down. Makio thought it was just combat training, and he was also confused about the opponent, who looked like a child or maybe a woman. The captain saw him and immediately called Miquillo. He said that at that time they were just calming the slaves down, and there was nothing to worry about. The captain also thought that Miquillo had come to talk about the war, but he was wrong, because Miquillo came for the same old reason, which is to exchange some supplies, because all their food was taken away from them by a disaster that happened on their land. He showed the rare item he got, and the captain said he would exchange it for food, saws, hammers and needles. So Miquillo said it was a perfect exchange. The captain also said that there was something Miquillo needed to know about the land of demons, talking about the civil war that was being fought in Histakenia. He explained to Muk-O that the country of the elves was intervening in the middle of the civil war between nobles and adventurers. The elves were now trying to reclaim their ancestral land, which is Histakenia. And now Muk-O remembers what she told him about the war she wanted to stop. Well, the elves were quickly rejected, but what happened was that by fighting the elves, the adventurers got more military merit than the nobles, and many nobles lost their status in the battle. Miquillo asked if the adventurers were now the ones who ruled the earth, but the captain said that it was not the adventurers who ruled now, but the nobles who instigated the adventurers, and these were they who now ruled as Queen. And now these nobles want to claim the land of demons as their territory, and they probably know their power and want to keep it for themselves. After Makio heard this, he showed the captain his document, proving that he had already bought the land from the demons. But the captain said that the document he had did not have much legal effect without the signature of the Ostonian Ika, and that he might even lose in court if that was his only document. Makio couldn't believe what he had just heard. He told Makio that, for a long time, the land of the demons was a gray area in this territory, which benefited the neighboring countries, but it was better that his land remained his. Then Mako asked the captain if he was on his side, and the captain replied that yes, in a way. He told Mako that Sistaquenia was turning against the royal family. This would be the only time they would act, but they wouldn't be able to interfere if these rebels went directly to the demon land. Then he reminded Miquillo that someone was trying to target his demonic land. He also helped Miquillo to contact the central office to send official documents proving that the land belongs to Miko, because this issue could get complicated in the future. He told Makio that he could also take this slave with him to the land of demons. The captain said that she was no longer a noble because she had been stripped of that title in eastern Kenya, so that he could take her with him and treat her as he wanted. Miquillo walked over to her and took a closer look. Then he recognized her and said that she was the one who came to buy wands. And the girl also recognized Makwo. Cher also said that they needed all the help they could get because of the situation in Theonland, and the girl also recognized Aker. Although she was disguised, the moment she said the word demon, Miquillo hit her in the neck to knock her out, and immediately took her back home. Now that they were back in the cave, Ellie asked who the woman she was carrying was, and Makio said she was a slave, and he brought her so they could have extra help. The noblewoman turned into a slave, woke up, and immediately saw Ellie's ears. She instantly attacked Ellie for being an elf, and was very angry at the time. Miquillo immediately stopped him from attacking Ellie, and told them to try to get along like fellow slaves. Miquillo was tired of all this nonsense. She told the girl that if she wanted to live there with them, she would have to struggle to pay the rent, or she would be kicked out. The next morning, Miquillo was surprised by what he saw, It seemed that the three of them were getting along well now. Now they started going out on expeditions, and he told them that today's hunt was to collect food and materials. Miquilla was surprised to see the slave, whose name was Sylvia, who seemed capable of fighting well on her own. Meanwhile, he was the complete opposite of Sylvia, and was almost devoured by the giant turtle, which is one of the weakest monsters in the land of demons. Ch quickly paralyzed the turtle to help Ellie, and then Miquillo killed her with his bone sword. Sylvia was splattered with the turtle's blood, and now she was all dirty. She complained to Miquillo that she was covered in turtle blood, so he told Cher to take Sylvia to the river to wash, and also get her new clothes. Meanwhile, Maquio was making turtle soup, because turtle meat is one of the delicacies of this land, because it is simply delicious. Suddenly, Cher called him, and told him to accompany her for a second. He saw a dead horse with a saddle, maybe someone rode him there. And Jennifer said there were 2 more dead horses there. There was also a bag, weapons and bloodstains nearby. Then he suspects that perhaps there's an intruder there. There was also a letter inside the bag, and Miquillo took it and read it. They tried to look deeper into the forest, but they came across some wasps. It seems that whoever was riding those horses had already headed to Mendagus. Those guys can't be saved anymore, so now they should go back and eat. Suddenly, Miquillo asked him, and why she was covered with tattoos, which also surprised him. Then he told Miquillo the truth. She was cursed, and these tattoos are the ones that seal the curse inside her, and because of the curse, she can't use magic anymore. But Miquillo told her that if she does not cause problems in her daily life, he does not see any problems, as long as she continues to make valuable potions. She asked if they were afraid of her curse, and Cher said no, because she is also cursed by the Demon King's lineage. Sylvia also told Miquillo that he can't use magic. The 4 girls talked about it and the others stopped too. Miquillo only smiled as he looked at them and listened to them talk. Then he threw away the letter that was in his bag, a letter from the rebels telling Miquillo to leave the land of the demons. But he didn't even care. The next morning, she wakes up Miquillo. He was surprised when he saw her casually walk into his room. Maquio told her that Cher taught him how to use sap materials for potted medicines, and that he should have warned her that something could harden quickly. Then Miquillo explained that the materials melt on contact with heat, so he thought it would be better to make the earthenware vessel. Then he came out, and said he was going to try other things. She also said that they saw something strange on the west coast. A zombie, according to her. Maquio went to see Seri Tiaram, he was a zombie. He said he didn't look dangerous, but to be safe, they should burn or bury him. Jennifer was the zombie he had defeated before, and the gold coin he gave to Miquillo as an advance payment for the rent he took to this zombie, but it would be problematic if the zombie virus spread there. Then, he ordered Asia to burn the zombie with magic. LG asked what was wrong with the coin, and he explained that the gold coin that the zombie had was the one that led him to her in the forest. She was surprised to hear this and told Miquillo that she should have told him earlier, because maybe this zombie could be an adventurous elf. And it's hard to tell because he's missing ears, so he can't be clearly identified. It could be that he was his predecessor who came to explore the land of demons. He said that the coin does not appear to be fake, or an imitation, so whoever is the owner of this gold coin can give it to me. After hearing this, Miko asked if Myard was the name of a city, and he replied that yes. It is a city where the magical kingdom of glass is located, and everyone, from children to the elderly, you can use magic. It is said that this city was more developed than any other country because of its magical tools. People also traded with the elf country, but the records disappeared a long time ago. Sylvia also read about it in a history book and asked where that book was. Miquillo said he had the book, which talks about how the land of demons used to be a country. But suddenly a lot of people started disappearing, and a floating island also appeared that was devoured by a giant magical beast. There is also talk of a religion where servants are considered messengers of the gods. He also showed her PJ's notebook, which describes the ruins, and told her to look at the last page. He read PJ's last note, which said, "My only regret is that I couldn't solve my problem. Mystery of this land of demons." Then he asked whose notebook it was. Miko said that a man who lived in that cave had it in his corpse, but the Iziar had already found the floating island in the sky, and went up there, where they saw the tomb of Peter Jefferson. Now they are confused. Because, if PJ's body was on the flying island, who was the person holding the notebook? McHub also pointed out that the choreography on the last page looked better, so perhaps this notebook was written by two authors. It's possible, said McHub, and it seems that neither of them has managed to solve the mystery of the land of demons. Now Hien begins to wonder where's Mirar, and why did Vidri disappear. Then, Miquillo told him that he will not leave this place until he solves the mystery of the land of demons. Jennifer was also interested, and Sylvia thinks that maybe her destiny is also to solve the mystery, because that storybook has been passed down in her family for generations. But, again, Miquilla reminded him that, no matter what happens, he is still the owner of this land, and if anyone tries to keep the treasure, he will be expelled without a doubt. Everyone continued to do the tasks that were assigned to them. Suddenly, Sylvia asked Miquil if she could make weapons and armor with monster materials. Miquillo told him to move on, because they have a lot of materials, and with that he can also pay the rent. Then he made a huge hammer, and Miquillo was impressed. He also asked Miquillo to teach him how to fight. Miquillo said that she is not strong enough to teach others, but that she can teach him survival skills in the land of demons if she wants. They started training right away, and now Sylvia is killing herself fighting a bear. Because his skin is very hard, and his attacks are not effective. It seems that fighting monsters and humans is another stop after all. Then he told him to take a closer look at the enemy's weak points. Miquillo was still the one who killed the bear, and he advised Sylvia that if her attacks don't work, she should think of other methods on the spot, and that she needs to learn to change tactics almost immediately. She asked Mikkel where he learned to fight, and Mikkel replied that he only took a few courses in the Adventurers Guild, and learned the rest by living in the land of demons. Just watch a lot, and when you get used to observing the target, you will be able to predict his next movements. Makio then began to teach him about the fruits here, not to eat them immediately, especially if they are unfamiliar, and that he should first test whether they are poisonous or not, applying it to the skin. He continues to teach Sylvia everything she needed to know to survive in the land of demons all day long. The next day, they were having lunch in the middle of the forest, and suddenly they heard screams coming from West River. Then, Miko decided to consult with Sari, and told everyone to go back to the cave, and stay there. They found some people who looked like murderers, but these people were already dead. But what caught my attention the most were the marks on their necks. Cher thinks maybe they're being attacked. Matthew also thinks they are being invaded, but he can't ask them now that they are dead. Then Cher suggests that they try to find someone alive. They found another one, but he was also dead. Miquillo is now thinking about what to do with the bodies, because if they are left, then they will turn into zombies. And that will be very problematic. Cher suggests that they show these corpses to the captain, but they must warn the others about it first. Sylvia instantly recognized the marks. They were from a group of church assassins, called the 16 Gods. Jennifer couldn't believe these guys really existed. Sylvia also heard a story from her father before, when the church threatened him that if someone with the crescent cross tattoo appeared, he should leave the house and flee immediately. Makeo is a little worried now because he seems to see who he can fall in love with. He then asked why there are killers in the demon land, and if anyone had any idea why. He looked at them, and thought that there is no shortage of suspects there. But Mako told them to leave it to the army. Why couldn't they handle such a deal? He decided to go to the captain, and told them to stay there. He immediately told the captain about the 16 gods. Maquio preserved the bodies using the salvage, and told the captain that they were already dead when he found them. And now the captain seems worried, because the situation got a little complicated. The captain said he would take care of the bodies, and also communicate with the central authorities to get accurate information. But Makio is more interested in knowing who these people are. Why are you worried that your comrades will come looking for revenge and find the corpses in the land of demons? Miquillo also suspects that maybe a bad rumor is spreading about the land of demons because these people go there. After saying that, The captain told him that he has something he wants to talk to him to. It's about the possession of the demon land that he mentioned earlier. Then, Maki asked him what happened to that. He thinks the certificate will arrive in about 3 days. And after that, the land of demons will become part of Maku's territory. Makio was glad to hear this and thanked the captain, but then the captain congratulated him because now he will become a noble. For having this huge territory. Mako could hardly believe what she had just heard, but she should put that matter aside for now. Because they had a bigger problem. In the next 3 days, the foot soldiers and adventurers from eastern Kenya might try to invade the land of demons. Mikhook was surprised when the captain said that. He explained that until the land was officially his, the army would not be able to act against any invasion that occurred there. Which means that this is the perfect time for the rebels to invade the land of demons. Therefore, Miquilo would need to protect his land only for the next 3 days, until the documents arrived. Then he asked the captain how many of them would be there. The captain told him that, considering the defenses of eastern Kenya, there were perhaps between 1,000 and 2,000 rebels. Miquilo said there were only 5 people there, including himself. So how were they supposed to defend themselves against 1,000 or 2,000 enemies? The captain also said that if eastern Kenya gains more power, this could lead to a full-scale war with the Elf Kingdom, something they should avoid at all costs. For Miquilo, becoming a noble means nothing, but he will not give up the lands he owns. Then, he told the captain that he would do everything possible to defend her. When he returned to the land of demons, he immediately warned that rebels would come from eastern Kenya to try to invade the land, and that they needed to defend it with all their might. They needed to plan this carefully and cheat using the terrain. Because 5 people in front of an army of 2,000 wouldn't even be a battle. And even if they complain now, the enemy will still come, so they needed to prepare quickly. They immediately started finishing some holes. Cher told Mikhub that she should make holes using magic, because then they could manage and use the time somehow. But Mikhu replied that it was not a good idea to use magic to finish holes. Cher suggested another idea, to make the land grow, and Makio, angry, agreed to do it so that Cher wouldn't bother him anymore. Then Makio made a hill instantly. Everyone was surprised at what Makio was able to do with his magic, but he explained that it was not magic. Because he simply finds the lifting force and interferes with it using his own magic. And it's not as difficult as it seems. But even Cher, who uses magic, didn't get it. And if he can find the energy so easily, that means he can create magic now. Everyone looked at Makio, thinking that he doesn't realize how amazing he is. Even an elf, he can't believe he's witnessing a scene where magic is created. Jennifer explained that usually you learn to chant spells first to see if you can really do it, but Makio said he couldn't do it. And even the village elders said that he had no talent for magic. So how can a human create magic without singing anything? They came to the conclusion that maybe Makio is just a weirdo. It doesn't matter if it's weird or not, but they need to know how to use stability to their advantage. Amy came up with the idea of changing the terrain to create a maze. Because even a simple hill can make a big difference, but that's only if there are a lot of enemies. Your strategy is to make the enemy cross several hills to reach the cave. And they can also guide them by detours and set traps in the valleys, because being in a high place already gives them an advantage in battle. Miquilo also prefers to avoid direct combat. If it is possible, then it seems like a good plan. He didn't think that an elf would be so smart to strategize for a battle. Sylvia also came up with the idea of attracting the monsters using fresh blood and flesh, and using them to fight the enemy. Sir also thought about using magic circles as traps. It would be more effective if they created explosive magic circles on the hills. Jennifer also suggests that if they camp in a large group, they could disrupt the supply lines. Then Miquilla thought that maybe he could poison the food. He saw that there were already swamp flowers buried for potions in the ground, and thinks that they must be ready by now. Now, Miquillo is starting to feel like he might have a chance to win. The 5 are now preparing for the biggest operation in the land of demons that is about to begin. Makio decides that they should eat first before the enemy enters the territory. While they were eating, Ian already hears something from afar. The sound of drums can already be heard in the distance. Miquillo then decides that they should evacuate to the top of the hill for now, and, no matter what, they should not step on the magic circles. They have reached the top of the hill, and now they just have to wait. An hour has passed, and there is still no sign of the enemy. Makio is a little disappointed and worried because he doesn't have an enemy yet. And maybe those guys won't even come. But he can already hear screams and battle noises in the distance. Maybe they're fighting monsters in the woods across the creek. Maybe they are fighting in the forest near the land of demons. So Jennifer decides to bake bread in the cave while they wait. Finally, nothing happened that day, so they decided to return to the cave. Miquillo asked Sylvia if this was also the case when they invaded eastern Kenya. Sylvia replied that there were several traders inside the castle, because many were bribed with money. Then Miquillo remembered something, and told them that if this battle ended and they won, he could become a noble. And the four girls were surprised to hear this. It seems that they do not agree with Miquillo becoming a noble. Then he asked if any of them had ever been noble. Well, 3 out of 4. And Miquillo can't believe that Tixera has been a noble woman all along. He asked again what it really means to be a noble. And his answers did not satisfy Makio, because he thinks that they are just a bunch of made-up statements. Then he decides to investigate this on his own. There was still no sign of the enemy, even as night fell, and they also took turns to stand guard so that everyone could sleep. The next morning, Miquillo woke up to an explosion he heard. Maybe it's one of the magic circles that was on the hill. They immediately headed for the hill. And it turned out to be just a boar that fell into the trap. But they can't leave dead bodies lying around, otherwise the monsters might gather and destroy the traps. Sher then tells Miquillo that the enemies have already arrived. He points to the Demonland maples on the other side of the creek. Many soldiers are entering the land of demons, and it seems that their leader is a magician. Suddenly, they started cutting down trees. Sylvia thinks that maybe they are trying to build a bridge to cross. Jennifer arrived with food, so they could fight on a full stomach. Cher asked Mikkel what they should do, and Mikkel replied that they should wait for now. But if something dangerous happened, then they would use the monsters. But for now, they should get ready for a barbecue. The enemies have finished building the bridge, and now the leader orders everyone to advance. And once they are in the forest, they will split up and advance into teams. As the soldiers advanced, they were attacked by slime monsters and large monkeys. It seems that all kinds of monsters in the land of demons are feasting on the soldiers. But one of them told the others not to falter and keep going. Finally, they reached the hills. Some fell into the traps that Mako and the others prepared. Others were devoured and paralyzed by monstrous plants, and others were attacked by wasps. Suddenly, the magician ordered them to stop because he would burn them all with his magic. If they kill this wizard, maybe they can put an end to the invasion. Then Ellie used her bow to kill the wizard. The magician began to recite a spell, but he could not finish because he was tired by an arrow. Miquillo was impressed with Ellie's marksmanship, but Ellie said he missed. The magician is still alive, and immediately ordered the soldiers to protect him with their lives. He told the soldiers that he would retreat to the other side of the river, and also ordered them to keep advancing. And praised the magician for being in command of the soldiers. Some guys said that maybe it was their turn to attack, but it seems that Sylvia recognized them. One of them asked him if he knew them, and she said that these guys were her father's enemies. These adventurers are the main force of the rebel army,